Greetings, fellow history seekers, and welcome back to another epic journey into the past. We are often told that no mighty fortress is truly impregnable, that every wall falls. Throughout ancient times, mighty castles crumbled to dust under the crushing weight of brutal sieges. But what if I told you that one singular structure defied this very rule for 1,000 years? Behold the Theodosian Walls, the ultimate machine that saved Western civilization. In the grand chessboard of ancient warfare, defense was always considered a fleeting illusion. Armies believed that any stronghold, no matter how vast, would eventually surrender to time. History is written with the ashes of legend, burned to the ground by ruthless invaders. According to ancient records, massive wooden trebuchets could shatter the thickest stone defenses. Relentless barrages of heavy boulders rained down, turning proud towers into piles of jagged rubble. Underground mining tactics were truly devastating, hollowing out the foundations of castles. Sappers dug deep beneath the earth, collapsing giant walls without a single weapon striking them. And when the walls finally breached, the horrifying human wave tactics would drown the defenders. Thousands of expendable soldiers poured through the gaps, overwhelming the tired city garrisons. The deafening screams of the doomed echoed through the collapsing streets, marking the end of empires. Starvation and rampant disease often accomplished what heavy siege engines simply could not achieve. Cut off from the world, desperate citizens were forced to eat their own horses to survive the winter. Surrender was never an option, because the victors would show absolutely no mercy to the weak. Enslavement, or a tragic fate, awaited those who dared to defy the incoming tide of conquest. For centuries, military engineers struggled to design a fortress that could withstand anything. They built higher towers and gates, hoping to delay the inevitable doom of their people. Yet every new defense was quickly matched by a deadlier and more powerful weapon. It seemed that the fundamental laws of siege warfare heavily favored the relentless attackers. A determined army with enough supplies and patience would always break the spirit of the defense. Even the mighty walls of Rome and Babylon eventually fell to conquering forces. The cycle of building and destroying continued, painting the ancient world in pain and sorrow. Kings and emperors poured enormous fortunes into fortifying their fragile borders against raids. But the sheer scale of the invading barbarian hordes made standard walls strictly ineffective. The unstoppable momentum of history proved that stone and mortar could not stop human ambition. Or so the world believed, until we examined the crown jewel of the Mediterranean Sea. A city heavily placed between two massive continents, commanding the absolute wealth of the world. The very heart of the Byzantine Empire, holding the sacred legacy of the fallen Roman state. Welcome to the capital of Constantinople, the eternal city of divine emperors. For over 1,000 years, the most brutal conquerors on earth set their greedy eyes on this prize. Before the mighty city was the glorious and towering Theodosian Wall system. In the 5th century, terrifying Huns, led by the infamous Attila, ravaged the countryside. Their lightning cavalry easily crushed every European army standing in their way. Yet, when they reached the formidable gates of Constantinople, the mighty Huns simply stopped. The imposing height of the stone structures rendered their deadly composite bows completely useless. Without heavy siege equipment, the fierce nomadic warriors were forced to retreat in frustration. Centuries later, the unstoppable Arab Caliphate brought their massive, dark fleets to the coastline. Driven by religious fervor, thousands of desert warriors launched a massive amphibious assault. They expected the crumbling Byzantine defenders to surrender quickly under the immense pressure. But the Arab forces faced a horrifying fate, losing countless ships and men in the dark waters. Relentless winter storms and impenetrable defenses completely shattered their holy campaign. Later, the massive armies of the Bulgarian Empire descended upon the city like a plague. Tens of thousands of armored Slavic warriors surrounded the capital from every direction. They brought advanced siege towers and heavy battering rams to smash through the ancient iron gates. However, the brilliant geometry of the walls allowed defenders to rain death from multiple angles. The Bulgar infantry was decimated by the thousands, leaving fallen men in the muddy trenches. Time and time again, the greatest empires in the world walked away in humiliating defeat. The Impregnable fortress seemed to possess a divine blessing, untouched by the chaos of warfare. If you were a soldier facing these towering crimson walls, would you have the courage to charge forward? The deep psychological terror inflicted by the fortress broke the morale of entire armies. Defenders simply watched from above, raining arrows down upon the exhausted, terrified invaders. What engineering marvel made this specific defensive line so utterly indestructible? It was not merely a matter of stacking huge stones, higher than any other city in the world. The secret was a perfectly calculated, three-layered defense system of pure destruction. A terrifying gauntlet designed to trap, exhaust, and completely obliterate any incoming force. To understand its power, we must study the structure of this legendary military masterpiece. Let us step into the heavy shoes of an invader and experience the deadly layers one by one. The very first obstacle an attacking army faced was a massive, dauntingly deep water moat. Stretching over 20 meters wide and 10 meters deep, it was an absolute nightmare to cross. Heavily armored knights and their terrified war horses frequently drowned in the murky, muddy depths. Attackers frantically tried to fill the trench with dirt and wood while being peppered with sharp arrows. If, by some miracle, a small group managed to cross the deadly water, they faced the outer wall. Though relatively short, this secondary barrier was heavily manned by elite Byzantine archers. A truly constant, blinding storm of iron-tipped arrows and heavy stones crushed the struggling invaders. Historical chronicles describe the sky turning black from the sheer volume of defensive projectiles. The outer wall served to break the initial momentum, forcing enemies to fight for every inch. Now imagine you survive the moat and the arrows, finally breaching the sturdy outer defenses. You might think victory is near, but you have merely stepped into the infamous Peribolos. This deadly enclosed terrace, known as the killing zone, was trapped right between the outer and inner walls. The mighty inner wall loomed 12 meters high, fortified with massive octagonal stone towers. Trapped in this narrow corridor, the invading soldiers had absolutely nowhere to run or hide. They were completely exposed to the most horrifying secret weapon of the ancient medieval world. The legendary Greek fire, a devastating chemical compound that burned brighter than the blazing sun. Specially trained engineers unleashed this liquid hellfire through heavy bronze siphon tubes from above. The pressurized inferno clung to flesh and armor, melting iron and destroying men instantly. Pouring water on the mysterious substance only made the violent chemical reaction spread faster. Terrified and panicked soldiers screamed in agonizing pain, rolling in the dirt to escape the relentless flames. The Peribolos quickly transformed into a blazing furnace of death, consuming entire battalions. If you discovered a weapon of mass destruction in ancient times, would you keep the dark secret? The exact recipe for Greek fire was guarded so fiercely that it remains a total mystery today. Some scholars suggest it contained petroleum, quicklime, and sulfur, creating an unstoppable blaze. This divine fire was considered a sacred gift from God, strictly protecting the holy Christian city. Not even the most courageous warriors could maintain their discipline when facing the liquid fire. The heavy impact of seeing comrades burn alive completely shattered the enemy's resolve. Any siege tower that managed to approach the inner wall was immediately reduced to glowing ash. The brilliant combination of deep trenches, layered walls, and chemical warfare was truly flawless. The Theodosian Walls functioned as a synchronized machine, designed to outlast any siege. Even massive earthquakes that damaged the stone structures could not defeat the resilient empire. Citizens of Constantinople would quickly repair broken sections before the enemies arrived. They utilized special red brick bands within the limestone walls to absorb the devastating tremors. This clever, flexible design prevented the giant towers from collapsing under heavy stress. Furthermore, the city possessed enormous underground cisterns to store fresh drinking water for years. Huge granaries were filled with wheat from Egypt, ensuring the defenders never faced starvation. Massive wealth from the highly lucrative Silk Road trade funded continuous wall restorations. As long as the treasury was full and the emperors remained strong, the city was perfectly safe. For 10 long centuries, the Roman legacy was heavily shielded by this magnificent barrier. This grand architectural marvel did not just protect one wealthy and sprawling capital city. It acted as an unbreakable shield for all of Western European civilization. For an entire millennium, the walls absorbed the heavy blows of endless Eastern invasions. Without this massive stone barrier, the history of the modern world would be very different. But as we all know, absolutely nothing in this physical world can last for eternity. The devastating collapse of the invincible fortress finally arrived in 1453. It did not fall to the sheer numbers of a terrifying barbarian human wave attack. The tragic end of the Byzantine era was brought about by the dawn of a new technology. The ambitious Ottoman Sultan dragged an incredibly massive weapon to the ancient city gates. A giant bronze monster, measuring over 8 meters long, cast a dark shadow on the battlefield. This terrifying supercannon was built to quickly shatter the impenetrable walls. The legendary Basilica gun required hundreds of strong oxen to slowly move it into place. It fired solid marble boulders weighing more than half a ton with terrifying destructive force. For the very first time in human history, the deafening roar of gunpowder shook the ancient stones. The relentless artillery bombardment cracked the mighty limestone blocks until they finally broke. Gunpowder proved the glorious era of mighty stone fortifications was truly over. A single brutal blast from the bronze beast unleashed hell, closing the final chapter of the ancient world. The Great Walls stood strong for 10 full centuries before falling to the mighty Ottoman cannon. Could the mighty Byzantines have survived if they had bought the cannon first? Tell us your thoughts below. If you enjoyed this journey, please like, share, and subscribe for more epic history videos.